season starts here, the Vancouver Boat Show.
Hey, welcome to the Vancouver International Boat Show virtual seminar series, sponsored by Freedom Marine International Yacht Sales, the premier choice for exploring the passion of yachting. Thank you for joining us, and the seminar will begin in one moment. If you are having technical difficulties, you can reach me, the online moderator, via the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Questions for the speakers can be added in the Q&A box, also at the bottom of your screen, and questions will be answered after their slide presentation. So it is our pleasure to present Overnight Passage Essentials with John Neal and Amanda Neal. Over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Well, welcome to Overnight Passage Essentials. My first overnight passage was departing Victoria in July 1974 in a little tiny Albin 27-foot Vega headed towards San Francisco and paradise.
Wow, I think my parents used to sail at night a lot when we were growing up. So we'd trailer our boat and they'll do overnight passages, sort of mainly to get out of bays. It seemed overnight when I was
Where
little.
was that?
In New Zealand. But I think my first offshore overnight passage was when I was 10 and we sailed from New Zealand up to Tonga in the South Pacific. In 1988, when we raced in the Southern Ocean, it was light because we were sailing 24 hours a day. So the overnights really happen in the tropics where it's light for 12 hours at night. But in 1988, I raced around the world with 12 girls, and nighttime was when things seemed to go wrong for some reason.
For the last 32 years, we've been doing offshore sail training around the world, and our platform for the last 22 years has been Mahina Tiari 3, a Hallberg Rossi 46, which we had built in Sweden and launched in 1996, specifically to do long distance sail training. We've just decided within the last 3 days to sell her. She's in New Zealand, and the details are on mahina.com/boat. And our next boats include a Garcia Exploration 45, which we're doing sail training in for the next, well, as long as the owners will let us. And then we're also doing extensive sail training 6 weeks in Scotland next year, which is one of our favorite sailing places in the world. We're allowed to go all the way up to the Shetland, which is very exciting.
So we're offering 9-day passages aboard those vessels for intensive training to get you offshore ready for your own boat.
And the training is offshore.
Mm-hmm.
So we're doing 4 seminars at the Vancouver Boat Show this year. The next 4 days consecutive, we'll be doing one each day. And we look forward to having you join us at each of those. And if you don't get a chance because of your schedules to attend one of these, they will be up for some time on the Vancouver Boat Show site, so you can revisit them. We're very excited about our first ever virtual offshore cruising seminar. We've done 173 offshore cruising seminars since 1976, and this is our first virtual one. We'll be filming part of it at the Marine Tech Center in Anacortes, and the program chairman, Mike Beamer, is also teaching with us, and that information, we'll have a link to that later on. But that's April 13, 15, and 17. And it includes our 260-page Offshore Cruising Companion book getting mailed to you.
So today we're going to cover offshore overnight essentials. I guess mainly for going offshore. There's 6 points we'll cover, going through preparation and what you need to know and what happens when you arrive at your destination.
First thing is preparing the boat and yourself.
Well, I think being able to have other vessels identify you at night, so really good quality nav lights, LED lights, make sure that they're working, either at the top of the mast, such as this aqua signal, or at deck level, so you'll need both. And depending on the size of your vessel, make sure that they are the required arc and luminescence.
Upgrading your electrical system, starting out when you get ready to head overnight or offshore, starting out with good batteries is a good is a really important thing. We're big fans of the Lifeline AGM batteries. They aren't the absolute cutting edge, but they are really, really stable and they last a long time. We're just looking at the dates on that, and I noticed that the top 12-volt battery is from March 2015. And we're going to replace it even though it's perfectly fine, but we generally get close to 5 to 7 years out of these batteries.
Well, what's going to charge your batteries is your engine. So you really want to make sure that your engine is up to scratch. So I'll be doing a diesel engine seminar on Saturday. So if you don't know much about engines, this is going to cover the basics, just how an engine works, what you need to know for getting yourself overnight ready.
Nigel Calder teaches with us in many of our offshore cruising seminars, and he has a couple of really exceptionally fine books, Boat Owner's Mechanical and Electrical Manual. He just keeps updating that. And then Marine Diesel Engines, which is kind of the Bible for diesel engines, marine diesel engines. We really recommend these. Well, one of the first things that we do before every overnight passage is to check the bilge. Take the hose from the dock in the marina, put some water in the bilge, make sure both bilge pumps, actually all three would be ideal, work, and also the high water bilge alarm is a very important thing to add if your boat doesn't have one. This little wire tie tail was left by a worker when the new engine was being installed, maybe in Sweden. Swedes are really careful. They wouldn't have done that. So anyway, somebody
Maybe
dropped.
you did it.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Somebody dropped the tail of a wire tie, cable tie. You know, they snipped it off and it fell into the bilge. That blocked the bilge pump. So something as small as a wire tie can disable bilge pumps. It's really important that you check the bilge pumps before your first overnight passage.
You want to set up as many guides as possible. So on board, we have a sail reduction guide. So it tells you when to reef. And then we have a sail reduction procedure or how to reef. So what the steps are involved for dropping the main, putting in a reef, and unfurling the head sail. So these are written up so people can take a card. It's laminated as well. Take a card to the mast, we refit the mast and follow through the steps.
But we have these available for you to download, mahina.com/forms. You'll actually find a whole page full of links to forms that you can download so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Well, over the past 5 years, I've decided it's necessary to mark the reef points. I assumed that people would sort of know where reef 1, 2, and 3 is, but we've ripped our mainsail. So you can see underneath the P, between the 3 and the P, we've got a rip because we didn't follow procedures on our brand new sails. So now I've put big numbers. I've also color coded the tabs that come down onto the reefing rings. And also we'll show you in a minute, the head sails marked as well. For the daytime, we have black stripes. And then beside the black stripes, we also have reflective tape. So we can shine a flashlight torch for us Kiwis forward, and then it reflects back so we can tell when we're dialing in for reefing where we're at.
So we usually reef both sails at the same time. If we put a reef in the head sail, we're frequently putting a reef in the mainsail at the same time. 10% of the head sail, each of those marks is a 10% sail reduction of the Genoa.
Well, we tend to do the head sail first because we're going forward to reef. Then it's easier, you know, you've done the head sail and the boat's a little calmer. Lazy jacks, these are cat's cradle that catch the main as it comes down. So we make sure that ours can stow away because we need to use our storm trysail. Whereas this boat doesn't have it. So if we need to drop the main in a hurry or be over the deck and you can't see forward. So I like having the lazy jacks just for precaution if something was to happen in the middle of the night, rig the lazy jacks, drop the main, and it's not going to be in the obstruction from the cockpit.
Having red lights around the cabin and then also in the cockpit and a headlight that goes red is really essential.
I like to have a really good compass. Most boats don't seem to have compass lights at night, so it's hard to find a compass light. But I really like to quickly know when I get up in the cockpit what our heading is, rather than trying to work it out from the MFD or one of the digital displays, just to have a nice compass. And our compass has 2 lights in it, so we have to carry spare bulbs, and it's quite fiddly. If they go out at sea, we have to wait till we're hit land to replace the compass light bulb.
Nice to have 2 separate lights.
Mm-hmm.
Having a dependable autopilot for your first offshore passage or first night at sea is a really good idea. We replaced our autopilot after 20 years. It still worked fairly good, but the newer series Raymarine Evolution that we replaced it with is absolutely brilliant. It takes less power, super smart, and it was a good call.
You need to become familiar where the buttons are, though, especially at night, because otherwise you're trying to turn on your headlight and trying to hit where the left and right is. So make sure you're familiar with it.
You may choose to install a line cutter. We resisted this for decades and finally did it when we repowered and put a new shaft and prop in. And it's amazing. We haven't had any more lines tangled around the prop since then.
Oh, I like a sleep environment. So make sure you've got leak cloths, that it's a dedicated bunk with no drips and leaks, that nothing's crashing around, or it's nice to have a good space to go to sleep. Keeping crew well fed. So make sure you've got provisions for your overnight snack box, a good meal at sunset, and keep your crew well fed throughout the night. And then they're always looking forward to breakfast, which is your department. So
I love making breakfast. Yeah. Wow, I'm hungry. This looks yummy.
I know. It's
what
lunchtime.
is it?
Oh, it's a bruschetta. So it's healthy snack. So just even a piece of toast with some chopped up tomatoes and fresh basil. You can do avocado on toast. Go to bagels for midnight snacking rather than your sugary candy bars or quick pick-me-ups, chocolate. I prefer to have something a little more substantial. Here we are at lunchtime. So we've got lunch underway, but we have a cracker box. So if someone's feeling seasick or queasy or just for the munchies, it sits right next to the binoculars in the cockpit. So you can pass it around to your crew. You keep it stocked.
I keep it stocked with
cracker.
Good, yummy,
you do.
Yummy, tasty treats.
It's kind of nice to come up on watch and see. Hopefully the last watch has left you. Yeah, hopefully the last watch has left you something in the snack box. There's always bananas. Really good if you're seasick, but probably the best nutrition of all. I mentioned meal preps. In the corner, we have a hot pot thermos. This is by Nissan, a top plunger that we keep hot water in throughout the night for drinks. And then when I'm at sea, I'll have written up my evening recipes that I'm cooking up so that they're quick to follow. And then if I'm not able to do it, then someone else can follow. So there's our thermos in the corner, and then having recipes written down. Or if you're only out for a couple of nights, you can pre-freeze meals, make sure they're not too spicy for crew.
On some passages, you have a really good tendency of getting rough weather. Leaving Victoria, headed down the coast, guaranteed. And so here we are on a rough Tasman Sea crossing, just taping around the hatches. The hatches are new, but we just know that if we get really big seas, they sometimes drip a little, and we don't want anybody to have wet bunks or drips on them. So we're just taping them off. Since we started using charter boats to do sail training on because of COVID, we couldn't get back to Mahina, Tiari, New Zealand. One of the things that we've done is to make a handy dandy tool Ziploc bag. And so the boat we used last summer had just a tremendous number of tools, too many to find simple things. And so we just took a Ziploc, made it the handy dandy toolkit, and put the bare minimum of tools into it so we could grab them in a hurry.
We're going to talk about equipment for night sailing. We've got a list here that we'll be going through, starting with radio and ending with the light rule.
Well, for radios, there is a great new option for you, and it's a ICOM M506. It's a VHF radio that has a built-in AIS receiver. This is really great because you'll want to order the optional cockpit command mic, and that cockpit mic has the AIS screen built into it. This is great because if you don't want to turn on your MFD, which draws more power, and maybe light up the cockpit a bit, one thing that's always on when you're underway, hopefully, is your VHF radio on channel 16 in case somebody sees you whom you don't see. Well, this is great because you can we tell our watchstander every 15 minutes, pick up the microphone, which is right next to the wheel, look at it, and just see if there's any ships, any AIS returns showing up on that little screen. If there are, then immediately turn on the big MFD that has the radar overlay and the chart overlay on it. But this is a great tool for awareness of other ships. Now you must remember, fishing boats and military vessels worldwide are not required to show AIS. And in British Columbia waters, we have a lot of military activity, and you'll notice that Canadian warships are not transmitting AIS. And there's just a close-up of that screen.
Do you get the name of the ship, or just that there is a vessel?
No, you just see the icon. Actually,
right.
You can. Yes, you can scroll through and get it. But the smart thing to do is as soon as you see a vessel is to turn on the bigger unit and see it there. So here's the MFD in the cockpit. You can see it just behind Amanda's right hand there. And so we don't leave that on all the time when we're mid-ocean. Now, going down the coast, we do leave it on. So our rule is if we're within 100 miles of land, the radar, chart plotter, MFD never goes off. And you can notice on the right side of the cockpit, you'll see I have a laptop running Navionics charts, running actually CMAP charts on it. So we're running two different navigation systems at the same time when we're in critical waters. Kind of paranoia.
Well, I found out MFD wasn't that easy to program in the middle of the night. So I've typed up a card, a sort of a cheat sheet card that I've laminated up, and that sits in the logbook. So when I'm programming the MFD, I can pull the card out, get through the functions a little easier rather than just trying to stab at buttons in the middle of the,
which can be dangerous.
It's not a good thing. No, don't go button stabbing.
Recently, we just passed through the Straits of Gibraltar when we were sailing back from Africa. And I have never seen, this makes Straits of Georgia look like a lazy day. I've never seen the amount of shipping other than maybe in the North Sea that we saw in the Straits of Gibraltar. So AIS is fabulous in those conditions. It's also, what's this image for? Radar. Okay, so the MFD,
it's a jewel.
If you can afford it, if your boat doesn't come with a modern multifunction display that displays the electronic charts, the AIS return from other ships, and the radar, AIS, and what's the other one? The three different functions.
Chart.
Yeah, if you don't have one like that, it's worth old. It's worth upgrading. And so this is great because you can see the squalls show up as far as 48 miles off at sea, and so you can hopefully use that information to avoid. This is a line squall, a line of squalls. There's no easy way around, so we're looking for the area of least convective activity to penetrate there.
So the radar's on during the day, even though we're sort of coming into squally weather crossing the equator, ITCZ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So having a spotlight is very important. We are actually buying a second identical one to this for BC waters, so that one can be charging and the other one can be in use, because we had that happen a lot of times. So this last summer we've been doing sail training expeditions starting in Bellingham, following the Canadian border, we can't come across, and then going out into the Pacific and down. Hopefully next summer we'll be able to go up toward Ucluelet if Canada reopens.
But we found that we'd use up the spotlight looking for logs.
About 2:30 in the morning.
About 2:30 in the morning, and then
no more light.
And then take a while. So two
having
spotlights.
A spare, yeah. And having really high quality binoculars. If you're an older person, like some of us, you might want to consider stabilized binoculars. They're expensive, but boy, they sure make a difference. So we have, they're not here, they're in New Zealand, but we have a pair of Fujinon stabilized binoculars. They're twice as powerful and twice as useful as just standard binoculars. This is a really handy deal. It's called a light rule. It's made by Weems and Plath, the people that make navigational tools and sextants. And it's a slide rule that shows you what the lights will be or what type of ship you're seeing lights from. It's just really helpful.
Preparing your crew. So starting off with good gear. Boy, it's cold at night, even in summer. I don't like getting cold, so I do invest, and I don't like getting torrential rain, so I invest in foul weather gear pretty regularly. Safety harness, keeping yourself on board.
Important deal.
Mm-hmm.
So in the tropics, we usually use something like the West Marine Ultimate Harness that does not have flotation built in because it's less cumbersome and less hot, sweaty in the tropics. But in Northwest waters, flotation like the Switlick, this is a Switlick light, not Switlick, this is a Spinlock. Yeah, it's a Spinlock Light Plus. It's really good. It's very light, super good, latest generation, and it has a built-in safety harness. So that's just we never go on deck in Northwest waters without one of these on. It's just really smart.
You're a big proponent of headlamps at night.
I love headlamps. I have headlamps everywhere. It's just so nice to be able to reef without, remember the old days when you had to hold the flashlight in your teeth while you're trying to reef and then it falls down to the deck and rolls into the water? Headlamps are so good. And the brand that we really like is
This should be in the slide.
It's not.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not in this
there's-
show. Is
Oh,
not Princeton Tech.
Black Diamond.
Black Diamond. Yeah. So Black Diamond, which you can buy at MEC stores, is brilliant. They're waterproof, shockproof, and they're just great. And if you really want long battery life, look at lithium batteries for them, because they last longer. And here we are reefing, being able to have your hands free and not make too much light. That's really important. Well, seasickness is something that it's really a big deal. Amanda and I both get seasick. I went 15 years, first 15 years and several 100,000 miles without getting seasick, but now I get seasick once a year or so. We find we can't teach if we have someone who's spewing on board. And so I have a vested interest in getting people over seasickness so we can go with our training program. So I've written
Well, they're not having much fun either, really.
well, no, that's true. And we don't want people to be turned off on going cruising.
Yeah.
So here it is. Here's a free paper, mahina.com/seasick, that has, 45 years of a distillation of 45 years of experience with 1,200 people. Not many people have sailed with 1,200 students offshore. And so we'll tell you how to avoid it and what really works.
Practice reefing. So now you've got your headlamp, you then practice reefing in the dark and time yourself. How long is it going to take to put a reef in? And I really like to be able to reef. Certainly our main is what we call slab reefing in 3 minutes, with under 3 minutes.
And why is it important to reef quickly?
Because you get a squall coming through and you want to get that sail reduction down.
And
And
our mainsails cost
yeah.
$11,000.
It does.
Every minute that it is flogging, it's like tearing up bills, maybe $20 bills. And so,
and you're off course and people are trying to sleep and it's just like, what is going on? Like a herd of elephants on deck up above.
so
Right.
lists for everything.
Well, this list is for your standing orders at night. So you set down some parameters on what your crew and what you as a captain are responsible for, and who is to be called, chain of command, and what their duties are, because they're not just sitting in the cockpit watching movies
Or listening to their tunes.
No.
So on a commercial ship, this is a legal requirement. You have to have standing orders and watch orders posted on the bridge. It's a really great idea for recreational sailors to do this as well, so that everyone knows what their responsibility is while they're on watch.
For example, are you going to be having crew go alone on deck, or is the captain going to reef, or can you train your crew in enough time so that anyone can reef, or that one person goes up and one person steers? Watch schedule. So now we're talking about when you can get sleep, when you're off watch, who's going to be doing the cooking, the navigating. So we have a duty roster, but also a watch schedule. So at any dedicated time, there's 2 people responsible for the vessel, and they are in the cockpit.
But most of you are going to be sailing just with a partner.
Mhm.
And it's still a good idea to have a watch schedule so that you know when you can sleep and when you need to be awake and responsible for the safety of the vessel. It just depends from people to people. Many times women are better at night and not so keen about early morning watches. So we see a lot of couples, the guy will
Take till midnight.
yeah,
She'll
well,
take till 4 a.m,
yeah,
and
there
then
you
he'll do from 4 a.m.
till 10 in the
till
morning.
10. Yes.
And yeah, so that's a really common thing. I'd just like to point out, we replaced our instruments, and take a look at how big and bright the numbers are on the latest I-70 Raymarine instruments. They are so much easier to see. You can see them from the back of the boat, and they are really flexible. So instead of having a separate depth sounder, wind instrument, etc., these are all multi-functions. And so you can put 25 different screens up on each. You can choose from a lot of different values to have displayed. So their new instruments also require a lot less electricity, so they're better at saving power. We really like new. Pre-departure procedures. This is a favorite cruising friends of ours, Monty and Margie from Whistler. The name of the boat is Whistler. They're such keen skiers. Unfortunately, the boat's in New Zealand now, and they're
Keen
dying,
skiers.
they're dying to get back, and wakeboarders. Navigation is a really key part of safe overnight passage making. I know a lot of you probably have transitioned out of paper charts and may not even have them on board, but we still feel they are very important. We still teach with paper charts initially and electronic as well, but we think paper charts are really, really key to have on board.
Why? Why do you like paper charts? I mean, it's good
Well,
to say they're key, but tell me why.
I like paper charts because with electronic charting, small details that could be life-threatening frequently disappear unless you're zoomed way in. So especially on a long ocean passage, they're good. For overall planning, I really like paper charts because you can lay out, let's say you're going from Vancouver to Haida Gwaii. You can have a big overall chart where you can lay out the entire course. And then on that, you can put Post-its and say, okay, day 1, day 2, we've got 15 days to get up. We're going to leave the boat, come back to work a bit, 15 days to get back. You can.
Well, I think it's a quick visual.
It's a good visual.
Even looking at this chart, you're like, okay, here we are. This is where we're at. This is where we need to go. What's around? And I kind of miss that with digital. I like to know when I'm getting there, calculate the arrival time.
Are you there yet?
We have an overnight passage, like at least or a 3-day passage. How long is it going to take so that you're not necessarily arriving in the dark? Here's 3 city landscapes, and they all look fairly similar, although they're not. Totally different cities around the world, but at night.
Where's this? Is that Toronto?
They'll have to guess. Let me know. It could be a spot prize if it's Toronto. Yes.
It's Toronto.
But the previous one was New Zealand, and then we had Seattle. It's I think that's Kiwi. Yeah, it's Kiwi land. So, I mean, not that we're going to be sailing into cities at night.
We certainly try and do everything we can.
But here we are coming into a harbour in the UK, which you have to remember.
Looks like Victoria, kind of.
Kind of with the stone wall, and the beacons get lost against the castle lit up on the hillside that's changing colour. And then
cool.
Yeah, I know, but boats coming and going. So where you're at.
Oh, so crew briefing. This is something really important. And we really, in our teaching environment, we really try and have each person do their part of the briefing so that it's not just one person saying, here we are, we're going to do this, 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 and this, but getting everyone involved.
Well, you're planning around the weather, and that's often why you might be traveling at night up in BC or Alaska, getting back down, getting into an anchorage. So letting crew know what the weather's going to be and who's responsible. Here's
a big one, researching alternative anchorages and alternative destinations frequently based on weather conditions. And so this is a young couple who just got married aboard their boat in Friday Harbor, headed toward Alaska. And you can see they have the cruising guides out there and the tide and current for BC waters, and they're planning their passage up to Haida Gwaii. Actually, I think up to Alaska.
Yeah, well, they are now. Well, it's COVID.
Who knows? Yeah, it's COVID.
They're waiting to go south too. We hear of stories of people who tow their dinghy at night. Don't ever tow your dinghy. It's going to get lost.
So our rule is 1 mile. We don't tow the dinghy further than 1 mile. And we were kind of surprised, San Juan Sailing, from whom we chartered the boat that we used for sail training in the Straits of Juan de Fuca this last summer. They always tell their charter guests to tow the dinghy. And the first thing...
Are they traveling at night?
No, that's true. But even in the daytime, it's just crossing the Straits of Georgia or crossing Harrow Straits, towing a dinghy. It's like, really?
Yeah, I've got some dinghy stories. Yeah. They're not pretty. Long-term planning, if it's your first time out or just in planning, suggest that you follow a float plan. So let people know where you're going, what your destination is. Underway. So here we are, getting underway. And I mentioned watches earlier. So I enjoy night watch, but I have to make sure that I'm on watch and know that other crew are on watch. So we've got crew in this picture down below getting ready. The on watch are about to be relieved, but just doing a safety check and setting the boat up for the night.
Doing as much of the navigation as you can before nightfall so that you don't wake up other people down below. Plus, it's just easier when you don't have to use headlamps for navigating. And here we are at the chart table using multiple navigation platforms.
Schedule sleep. So watches mean that when you're off watch, do get sleep.
As a skipper, sometimes you have to be a little bit firm with your crew, especially if it's an exciting time, because everyone will be up and excited if there's heavy weather coming, for example. Then everyone is tired and they crash at the same time. So sometimes as skipper, you just have to say, hey, look, if you're not on watch, I really need you to go down and get some sleep. And then your crew will frequently say, yeah, but I'm up in an hour, or I'm up in 45 minutes. We say, but you know, the research done by the round the world single-handed racer says that 20 minutes is the golden period. So even if you can just get your eyes closed for 20 minutes, it really recharges your batteries. You want recharged batteries because you want to be alert when you are on watch at night, for sure.
I should mention an alarm clock too. So some of our crew don't
show
come.
them.
Oh yeah, I've even got one here for my time, but something that you can certainly do the
Oh, no.
timer and then like
It's
switch it
falling
off.
apart.
It's actually going to ring separate to your iPhone.
Now
That's
it's
going to
gonna
lose its
start ringing.
batteries. I know we're going to have an
Yeah,
alarm
so we
going off.
have a lot of people say, well, my
my-
iWatch or whatever you call it, it's got an alarm in it. It's like, yeah, but can you hear that when you're asleep and the boat's underway? Maybe not. So this is our main salon, and this is what we really encourage you not to do if you can avoid it. Don't sleep with your foul weather gear on, because you can get hypothermic even in the tropics. And so we really encourage people, even if they only have 20 or 30 minutes, take your foulies off, get into your bunk horizontal, where you'll have a better quality of sleep. So quality of sleep is really a key deal.
But when you were single-handing, didn't you sleep like this on the floor? I mean,
No, I slept
Oh.
in the cockpit. So I
Oh.
single-handed 6,000 miles through the South Pacific. And what I would do is I took a sail bag in the cockpit and I just crawled into the sail bag. This is in the tropics, South Pacific, so you're not cold. But I just crawled into the sail bag and I slept there. And I got really highly attuned to sounds. And so twice I was awoken by the sound of propeller noise coming through the hull. And I woke up and looked up and wow, there's a freighter passing across my bow. But I always had a kitchen timer. 15 minutes was the longest I ever allowed myself to sleep. And if you're single-handed, you can't just go to sleep and forget the boat. You still have to be responsible for the safety of the vessel.
well, sunset comes around at different times at different parts of the world, but it's sort of the time where you've got to get the boat ready for the evening. So it may mean sail reduction, make sure your meal plans are done. Also go and turn the screens down. So you can see here, we've got those lovely screens across the cockpit companionway. The MFD may be too high for night time. So you'll adjust the screens and the settings and sort of know that they're set for the evening. I mentioned meals. In the tropics, it's dark at 6 o'clock, like pitch black.
It's
So
like
we-
somebody turns the switch off. Boing,
Boing.
It's dark.
It's dark. So realizing we're starting in the galley at 4, getting ready for dinner, we'll be served and done, dishes done. We've got to bring that laundry in. I can see sitting on the rails. We've been for an afternoon swim.
Somebody's been swimming over there.
Yeah. So that determines night watches.
So our goal is always to have the meal done and the dishes completely cleaned and put away before it's totally dark, because it's just, a lot of times we have worldwide, whether we're in the Antarctica, the Arctic, or anywhere, even in the Mediterranean, we experience something that Amanda has nicknamed the sunset puff up.
I do. I think
You can set your watch by it. So just about the time you're starting to make dinner, the wind increases by 5 or 10 knots. And it only does that until you're ready to serve dinner, and then it tapers back down. So a lot of times people say, well, should we put a reef in right now? Or should we put a reef in every afternoon before sunset for the night? And the answer is no, because usually wait 15 minutes or 20 minutes and it's gone. And then you're under canvas and you have to shake the reef out. But anyway, mealtime, try and have it all done and stowed. We love sailing in the high latitudes of Scotland and Norway, where it never gets dark, or only a little bit
hours.
dark for a couple hours. Even in the Pacific Northwest, we love the long, if you're up in Prince Rupert and in that area, there aren't very many hours of darkness in northern BC waters. And it's such a magical, when you get that low angle of light for multiple hours, unlike the tropics where it's just boom, you really get some beautiful sunsets that just linger. Well, I'm waxing lyrical here.
Sail plan for the evening. Do we take the pole down? We mentioned sunset. Are we going to be jiving in the middle of the night? Is it going to be done in the dark?
Do we take this cruising spinnaker down?
Yes, cruising spinnaker down. That definitely comes down. So working out whether we can hold the sail plan for the wind conditions. So you're studying both. Now it is nighttime and we want to protect your night vision. I mentioned the screen settings earlier. I have a different adjustment to John.
Amanda turns the,
I-
yeah,
I
she turns the
liked-
lights all the way off.
I-
You can't see the instruments.
Well, I think I
She likes the dark cockpit.
I do.
Well, here we go.
Yeah.
So those are turned down pretty well. There's 2 screens going on there.
But still, the lookout's forward of the screen, so they're not
Yeah,
getting blinded
that's
by that.
really
They're not
important.
just totally measureabized.
You know, when you're setting up your boat, you have the option of putting the MFD, mounting it on the binnacle right in front above the wheel. That's really a poor idea, not only for night vision, but also just because of the weather exposure to it. It's not going to last near as long as if you tuck it up underneath the Dodger where it has less exposure.
Well, and more people can see it under the Dodger.
Exactly.
Like we've got
Yeah.
2 screens running because it's back at the back of the boat, then the person at the wheel.
This was on the Jeanneau that we used last summer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you took your computer and you put it up forward. So
Because only the person on the wheel could see the MFD that was mounted back by the
it
wheels.
did swivel though.
Yeah, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Long story.
so vigilance at night, big deal. Vigilance anytime, big deal. Lookout. So if there's more than one person aboard, we really like to have a lookout forward and take turns so that they don't get cold or exposed. But
This is in close waters, not
yeah,
totally
just inshore
offshore.
waters,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, you can see this guy. Oh yeah.
You know, kind of missed that this summer. There were no.
Yeah, there were no
There
cruise
were
ships
no
down
cruise
there. I kept
ships
wanting a
coming up
photo.
there.
That's why this is taken from
Yeah.
land, because we didn't see anybody.
Pete McGonigal, who teaches with us, was 15 years an officer on commercial ships around the world. And he's given us some images here of how hard it is for them to see a sailboat from the bridge of a commercial ship. You're just really at a disadvantage there. That's why AIS is such a brilliant safety factor. Boy, in BC waters, we just have to be so aware of the many different combinations of towed vessels that we have.
Well, even trying to determine, I mean, this is what you're looking at. So
Yeah, what's going on
it's
here?
what is going on with the deck lights of the vessel.
So we recommend when you're in a port and there's other fishing and there are fishing boats in the marina, like if you're in
Nanaimo.
Nanaimo's a great place.
Sure.
Yeah, walk down the dock and talk with a fisherman and say, what is your fishing rig? What do you have out? What do we need to be careful for? We found that fishermen, not just in BC but worldwide, are always very happy to have yachts people concerned about not running over their gear. And so if you could express some interest, well, here we are in Petersburg, chatting with these fishermen and just saying, hey, what's your fishery? What do we need to watch out for? And he's repairing the net at the same time. It's amazing how many times they end up saying, hey, you want a salmon? We got this one. It's bycatch. We can't keep it.
Shh.
Oh, we shouldn't say that.
Bright lights on fishing vessels. So where are their lights? What are they running? They're pretty erratic. Squid boats.
Squid boats are easy, and we find those mostly in the Atlantic. But this is the huge problem for Canadian cruisers getting into Mexican waters. Pangas fishing as far as 120 miles offshore with absolutely no lights. Can't tell you how many times the first light we've seen of a fishing boat off the Mexican coast are the glow of cigarettes of the fishing people. Many times these boats give no radar reflection whatsoever. A lot of times they're wood. They have no metal features that are going to reflect the radar. So just really, really important that you not run into their nets, because then you are responsible. Boy, the big challenge that we have going from Victoria down to Mexico, down to San Francisco first, are the Dungeness crab pots. The crab pots are huge. They weigh upwards of 1,500 kilos each. And well, this isn't the crab pot, but this is just to show
Crap in the water.
Crap in the water
Whether it be
worldwide.
the Atlantic, the Pacific, there's
it's
stuff
just
floating. Hence,
amazing
we
amount
mentioned
of junk in the water.
the line cutters earlier. Just peace of mind. Oops.
Coming down from Alaska the last time, we thought we might have picked up something because the prop sounded a little bit funny. Didn't have a wetsuit. I was too wimpy to just get in the water with the mask, which I had, and check it. When we hauled out at
Sydney
Canoe Cove
Ooh.
at Black Line, it was like, oh,
We've got the line cutter on now. This was
this was a bummer.
before the line cutter.
This is Calvert Island, fabulous anchorage north of Port Hardy. And it's just to show you, you guys all know how much driftwood there is in BC waters, but just to show
Well, that's
you.
the scary thing of running at night is
It
the
is.
logs,
And
because
that's the reason
and
for two spotlights. So there can always, anytime we're running at night in BC waters, we have someone standing on the granny bars with periodically turning the spotlight on, looking for
and
logs.
someone at the throttle if we're underway,
Right.
because as soon as you hear a clunk, get that throttle back to neutral so you're not going to
damage the propeller. Yeah.
I'm trying to get my sleep, my beauty sleep, with the engine running and people crashing around deck, but I try and minimize as much noise down below. So stuffing paper towels, sponges, putting your things in socks. Yes,
yeah.
that works well.
Wine bottles and socks.
Wine bottles and socks.
Wine
Anything
glasses
to
and
keep
socks.
things clunking.
Yeah. But night watches are cool.
Yeah,
and once you
cool.
get the hang of it, it's kind of a magical time because you have different sensory experience than you have in the daytime.
Well, you're really woo today.
Oh, I'm out there, I tell you.
So John's driving, it's mealtime. We've got one person with the sick bucket on the left there in the red, throwing up.
That's John Sturck from Vancouver.
Yeah,
I wonder if he's still around.
And we've got one person sort of eating ramen noodles out of their soup cup, and two people who are not refusing to eat anything. John's driving, so it must be pretty hairy out there.
Well, I like to drive during dinner so everybody else can eat.
Get fed.
But yeah.
Full moon. Mahina means moon.
In
Light
Tahitian.
and Tahitian.
Yeah.
So we're always looking for the full moon. Being from the southern hemisphere, the Milky Way and falling shooting stars are always wonderful at night. Wow, we don't get many aurora because we're
But
sailing.
we've seen it in BC
Mhm.
waters, seen
Yeah.
Northern Lights. Yeah.
These dancing skies.
Special,
I love it.
special night watches. What are you doing here? It's like you're eating a line.
I don't know. This is racing around the world. This is some of the unexpected things that happened when I was on Maiden that I still dearly remember. And the first was bioluminescence, really, really thick bioluminescence. And it just came down the deck in these waves, and you could scoop it up. This is in the Southern Ocean, and just like roll yourself, and you'd be this glowing Gumby for a few seconds. And then the next, it was just incredibly bright. Another time on the tour ship, we saw the spacecraft re-enter the atmosphere, and it had all these trailing rainbow trails behind. We didn't know it was, we just like, what is that coming through the
space
sky?
shuttle.
Space shuttle.
Cool.
We found out through the newspaper it was a space shuttle. So they had this dream trail, color of trail behind it.
Well, after arrival, usually the first thing that happens is clearing customs. This was arriving in Ireland.
Do they like you coming in the middle of the night? They
No.
don't know.
Well, it just depends on the
arrival.
plate. Yeah. And then meeting your neighbors. I think it's really important if you're in a new harbor to meet the boats on either side of you. It's kind of not just for social, but also in case somebody needs help or in case you need help. This was a very fascinating neighbor, Peter Smith. He's the gentleman, the Kiwi, who invented the Rockna anchor. He's a real hard case Kiwi. He hadn't been back to New Zealand in decades. And here he was telling us, extolling the virtues of the Rockna anchor. Well, this is in the Shetland above the Orkney Islands. And this was a true Viking guy. He's on a replica Viking rowing longboat. And we had a fascinating time having him explain how and why they built this boat.
And the best drinking spots in town.
Yeah, and just behind his elbow there, you can see the lifeboat. So it's a RNLI lifeboat like in England. Well, here's one of our favorite arrivals. This is Huahine. It's 120 miles west of Tahiti. Absolutely fabulous island. One of the cool things is it has no hotels. It has guest houses and pensions, and it has fabulous anchorages. It's actually 2 islands. You can bicycle around them. There's a bridge across between the 2. And there's
Huahine is an overnight sail from Tahiti, from the island of Moorea. So you arrive in the morning to this beautiful, lush island.
Sail through a somewhat skinny pass. This is actually the skinniest of the passes. And this was our first time in coming through Pass Tiari on the eastern side of Huahine.
So Saturday we kind of relaxed, but then Sunday we were ready to explore. So we decided to go for a long run and ended up hitchhiking back because we'd run so far down.
We run like an hour and a half to the very southern end of the island. It's like, wow.
I'm wearing a flower crown, which I found on the road. So it had blown off somebody's head on their way to church, even though it was Sunday. But the next Sunday we dressed up and we went to church, and the ladies wear beautiful hats and flower crowns.
And the singing all throughout the Pacific and in Mexico, the singing is just, church is a cultural experience. And it's something, we're not religious in that sense, but it's something that is really worth experiencing in the different places that you cruise to. And it's often a way to meet people at a different level than you would on the street or on the dock. The exciting thing about Huahine is that it's very involved in the resurgence of Polynesian voyaging. So there was a tremendous amount of voyaging that happened from Huahine and Raiatea. New Zealand was discovered from Polynesians sailing their 80-foot catamarans from this island and from the next island. This is a religious site. There was an 80-foot canoe that was discovered and uncovered. It had been covered with mud in probably 1700s. There's just a lot of very neat things, and they have rebuilt them. This is a canoe house that's been rebuilt and turned into a museum. We met a potter on a little tiny islet in Huahine, and here he's showing us his Polynesian motif pottery.
Also from the mud that down in the bottom of the lagoon, so it's local clay, and it's fun to get my hands mucky making pots. And then off to the gardens for some fresh veggies and snorkeling in the lagoon. All these fun things that
we can't do during COVID. We're just waiting.
I know. What are we showing Tahiti for?
There's going to be this huge mass exodus out of Vancouver.
Boats are there, but anyway,
yeah,
we need to change the sequence out for something a little more local.
Well, here's what we can do.
Yep.
We can help you getting offshore with sail training on board in Pacific Northwest waters, in Scotland, in Alaska. And every year we're going to, since we're selling our boat, every year we're going to do sail training in a different favorite part of the world for us. I've been doing boat purchase consultations since 1976. I've helped about 10,000 people find their ideal cruising boat and then help them with voyage planning and selling the boat when they're all done. You want to talk about that?
In April, we have our first ever virtual offshore cruising seminar. So we go through our 200-page book.
260-page book.
Right. Details of that are coming up on mahina.com or email sailing@mahina, and we'll send you the schedule for that. Yeah. We've written quite a few books, from coloring in books for the diesel engine to my galley essentials book to your first sailing the South Sea. So they're also on our website,
which is just mahina.com.
And there's lots of free forms. So under mahina.com/forms, we have seasickness, reefing guides, films we've mentioned in this seminar.
We even have recently put up an engine maintenance log form and also a ship's logbook form, because we couldn't find any logbooks that really were good value. And so these are forms that you can use as a template and customize them and use them on your boat. And then if you have questions, we'll be happy to answer them now. And you can also email us, just sailing@mahina.com, if you have questions.
Okay.
Question.
So,
you still
John
there,
Amanda,
Maureen?
I'm still here. And
Hey, welcome back.
Everyone, please add your questions to the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to them all. So first question for you is from Stacy. When are your sail training trips, dates, and do you take whole families?
Stacy, our first expedition this summer is April 28th. And yes, we take whole families. We have an entire family flying in from Korea, and they took the entire boat. And we've done that over the years. We've done that many times. Any advice for adjusting sleep for shorter passages like 1 night or 2 nights? Well, those are the most difficult, I think.
Yeah. Put sleep in the bank.
Exactly.
2 days before, I am not seeing anybody. I'm not very social. I'm like,
it sounds easy, but inevitably the last 2 days, there's just a ton of things to do. But Mike Evans, is that Mike Evans from Toronto? Mike and
we buy a new boat.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
We don't know.
We've got 5 kayaks right now. We just have
business. Well, John,
I have 5 kayaks. Oh, it is Mike Evans from Toronto. Hey, Amanda said that Jane, your partner, just did an incredible sail repair video for the Toronto Boat Show that's still up there.
No, it's on here. She's doing it here. She did it this
she's
morning.
doing it here too.
Yes.
Okay.
No, Jane.
So Jane Finn.
Jane, your sail seminar is amazing, and I'm going to highly recommend it to anybody and everybody. So thank
you for doing that.
And good luck with your talks, Mike.
Lewis, Amanda.
Oh, what about Lewis?
Lewis says, do you give presentations
And share stories about maiden
tell them
days.
about what's just coming up? So
I have just been dusted off to do a maiden talk. I missed all of it because of COVID. Maiden came out when I was sailing the South Sea, so I'm not in the movie. My name's in the credits, and I've just been asked to do a talk for Renton. So my coloring in book,
we should ask Renton Yacht Club if they will
if they
allow.
record it, they might record it.
Okay, so Lewis, what we'll do is watch mahina.com latest news, and also on the Facebook and Instagram channel of ours. And Amanda will post if she's going to be able to open that up to the public, that what she's doing for Renton Yacht Club. Any other questions?
I have to scroll down.
Oh,
We're scrolling down. Oh, we're awesome. Yeah, we know we are.
Thank you, Lewis.
We are awesome.
You guys don't have any more questions?
Oh, we'll be checking in with the forum. We're up for another 3 days. So you
Oh
can,
yeah, what's our program tomorrow?
I don't know. I can look it up.
Oh no.
Tomorrow is I know Diesel's is Saturday.
We're doing anchoring tomorrow
tomorrow.
at 5:30. And so this is a good anchoring is a good seminar. It's and it's not just anchoring in British Columbia waters, it's anchoring worldwide. So we talk about anchoring in the Med, anchoring in the Caribbean. We just give you hopefully some tools to use for cruising on your own boat, that some techniques that you might not have heard of. Where are you guys living during COVID? Well,
in our airstream. This is our caravan.
So
are we living? Are we surviving?
For 31 years, since long before I met Amanda, I bought a little condo at Roche Harbor Marina. You guys all know Roche Harbor Marina, just across from Sydney. But the only way I can afford it is if I rent it out every year. So I've rented it out for 31 years. COVID happened. We couldn't return to New Zealand. We had no place to live. There was no place to rent on San Juan Island, near Victoria where we live. And so we bought this little tiny Airstream Bambi, 16 feet. And that's where we live. We're getting ready to move into it because the condo has to rent out now. And so we actually went traveling when we weren't sailing last summer.
Okay, this one where you are. Okay. Enough.
We're living on San Juan Island, just slightly east
Surviving
of
COVID.
Sydney.
I hope you guys all are.
Yeah. We're looking for this to be over because
we want to go.
We want to go back to
sailing.
Canada.
And Victoria. We've already booked Scotland.
Randy Singer, what level of pre-overnight experience do you expect for your students? How much experience is too much? Well, we don't ask for any overnight experience. We're only looking for moderate sailing experience. We're not looking for experts, but there's no experience that's too much. We've had multiple people with us who crossed the Atlantic on their own boat, join us for expeditions.
You just can't be a know-it-all because we'll ask you to do it our way. Yeah.
No, well, you just have to have a thirst and a real excitement about learning, because that's the people that we want as students aboard. We want people who are just hungry to learn everything they can so they can use this on their own boat. That's our whole deal, our whole focus. It's not about us, it's about you, and about giving you the tools in just 9 days so that you can sail around the world on your own boat. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but if you are really a quick learner and motivated to learn, it's amazing how much you can learn with 24 hours a day, fire hose instruction.
You can look through our past blog updates.
Oh, yeah.
We have everything recorded that we've done out in the Straits and our Scotland trip. We're on Instagram, so we're posting little snippets of crew on board and daily life. But
anyway.
And go through a teaching manual too, as well as
and you can buy our expedition companion that we teach from. So I'm a pilot, and that's where all of this compulsion for documentation comes from. In airplanes, there's a checklist to do everything. There's a checklist for using the head, for Pete's sake. No, I'm just joking. But so if you are interested in joining us, one of the things you can do is for $20, just buy the teaching manual and then start studying it, and probably be really helpful anyway. When you do your offshore training, do you leave domestic waters, and upon return, do COVID protocol quarantine apply? So Lewis, what we've done this last year, we planned to sail from Bellingham to Bedwell Harbor and then nonstop out to Ucluelet and back. We couldn't do that because we couldn't cross into Canadian waters. We expect that probably our September expeditions this year will be able to do that. But what we did this year was just go from Bellingham out the straits past Victoria and turn left and go a little bit down the coast and then come back. We've made all of our trips are longer next year because we found that 7 days was a little bit short. Any other questions about your first overnight passage? Well, boy,
Yay.
if we answered all the questions,
High five.
that's a first. and we're early. We're not running over. We're so used to the boat show seminars at the Vancouver or Toronto shows where there's another couple or another speaker coming in. We have to be really careful that we clear off the stage on time so the next person can speak. And this is kind of different here. But anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow night at 5:30 for anchoring. And thank you, Vancouver Boat Show and Maureen, for hosting us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, John and Amanda. And thank you for joining us today. We are interested in your feedback, either on this seminar or if you have ideas on topics that you would like us to cover in the future. Simply click on the Evaluate tab located just above the seminar description and complete the form. After the show, all attendees will also receive a post-show survey. Be sure to check out all the features at Vancouver International Boat Show Virtual. And if you have a question, check out our info booth. Have a great day at the boat show. Thanks all.
Thanks, Maureen.
Bye.
Bye.